Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
I was in tears. I was just like, that's the best, man.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. This is episode 5. It's the third in our series in a row that's containing a season 7 guest. Last 2 weeks we had Roland, who won, and Callie, who came in second. And this week we have an awesome contestant, Correy Hawk, who's the GOAT of bow building and traditional archery. Thanks everyone for joining. It's gonna be a good one. There he is.
What's up, Ryan?
How we doing, man?
Great. How are you?
Good. How's the road trip going?
Not too bad. Just pulled over real quick to get some fuel, and I apologize to everybody in advance for the video quality, but hopefully the audio works all right.
No, that's all right, man. That's all right. I just saw your story about how pissed you were at people driving slow in the fast lane. I was dying.
I'm a pretty calm guy all around, but the one thing that just gets me in a maddening rage is people driving in the passing lane, like 5 under the speed limit.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. Especially when you're going really far across country and you're trying to make good time, just getting crushed.
Yeah, big pet peeve. But keep them calm, breathing deep.
That's all right. Yeah, do some breathing exercises or something. Yeah, I can't say I relate because since I got Lady May, which is like 6 months ago, we drive all the way to the right at all times. It's like just automatic slow lane. There's nothing else because my car doesn't go very fast. So it's not uncommon for us to be doing like 40 on the freeway because we're in the mountains, right? So it's like all uphill, and I'm in a 1993 truck with a camper, and it's just, we're not moving very fast. But I like seeing the world at that speed.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to look around and soak it in a little bit. Yeah,
for sure. So tell me, what's this thing you're going to again? It sounds just like an overall like brawlic competition to me. Like it's bow building or bow shooting, and then lifting and obstacle courses and.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what they've got going on. It's just kind of like a winter survival outdoor training course. I've been invited to attend the Winter Strong in South Carolina, hosted by Sorinex. So headed down there for the weekend, hang out, meet some new people, do some primitive skills, do some archery. Yeah, nice. Just have a good time.
Sweet. How did you, so obviously the archery thing is what you're doing full time. How did you get into like the other primitive skills outside of traditional archery?
I mean, it's partially just curiosity and partially being raised up in a family of outdoorsmen. I had, uncles and grandparents and great uncles that would take us out in the woods and teach us about wild edibles and just trapping and identifying, plants and just animal behavior and tracking and stuff like that. So it's kind of in my blood, but I've definitely got a deep passion for it and a deep curiosity for it. So I read a lot of books. I do a lot of practical application, spend a lot of time in the woods. So just an accumulation, I guess, over a lifetime.
Nice. I'm curious. So Callie was mentioning that she had a normal upbringing, right? And she just gravitated to that sort of outdoors lifestyle. Did the cousins and the maybe brothers and sisters that you grew up with, did they all kind of stay on that path of like living an outdoors lifestyle, or did they kind of drop it as they got older?
I think it really just depended on which professional endeavors they went into. I think everybody's still, everybody that I can think of in my family is still into the hunting and the fishing and just being outdoors and hiking. But there were really only a handful of us that kind of took it to the extremes. My little brother's pretty into that type of stuff. He kind of makes some of his own weaponry and spends a lot of time in the woods. So he's big into fishing and trapping and like hunting crustaceans in the water and stuff. So it really varies. Not everybody kept it, but it's around in different degrees.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's sweet that you got a good taste of it when you were young. that's probably something that is less common now than it used to be, right? Those are like the skills you learned growing up probably 40 or 50 years ago. And I think less often now, that's something that a parent thinks to give to their kids. They're probably like, work hard in school, do your chores, and less often are they thinking about understand weather patterns, understand trees, understand wild edibles, and things like that.
I know it's kind of a shame because it's it's a beautiful process just to get the kids out there into the woods and see the magic in their eyes. We try to do it with my brother's younger kids and my sister's younger kids, just get them out there and I don't know, put them in the bush, let them see the different plants and animals and stuff. And it's pretty cool. Kids are kind of have a natural affinity for it. So it's fun to watch, and it's a shame that it's not more common these days.
Yeah. And I also noticed that kids are able to, I think because they have less exposure, oftentimes they have a heightened sense for certain irregularities. So they'll notice things that adults wouldn't notice, right? Like certain characteristics on plants that maybe adults have just kind of shrugged off or seen too many times. Like kids will point out really small details that adults would never notice.
Yeah, it seems like they're more open and curious about it, and we've kind of just become desensitized to it, to where you don't notice 98% of your environment.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
It's kind of like a survival. It's a survival adaptation for us because we've got to deal with traffic and jobs and people, and kids don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So they've got a lot of spare brain cells left for the magic of the world.
That's right. Yeah, that's right, for sure. Yeah, kids are something else. I've seen a lot of different folks. There's a big homeschooling population out here in the mountains, and they do different trips, which I think is really cool. So there's definitely some people refocusing on like the finer skills of the outdoors. So that's always it's a breath of fresh air to see, because kind of where I grew up and came from, there was a lot of woodsy stuff. I was a Creek kid, but I didn't really have a lot of mentorship or people showing me those skills.
Yeah, I think access to the environment's a big one too. Like you said, you've got access to the environments, and not everybody has that. So
yeah, I think that definitely helps. Being like right now we're in the Rockies, so the kids here have a special opportunity, right? Because there's a lot of vast outdoors and a lot of things to see many months of the year. So they've got a
for sure.
So let's touch base on a loan. One thing that I'm really curious about is kind of how you got into it, because for me, like when I see your posts and just from our conversations, you seem like a guy that's kind of minimalist and simple in your endeavors, and you kind of are focused on certain things and pretty successful in those. And then a loan comes into the picture. Was that something that you had sought out and worked for a long time, or did it just kind of pop up?
It more just kind of popped up. I was a fan of the show, for years. I watched it, and I didn't really think about applying or anything. And it was just, it seemed like a cool idea to me. I was open-minded to it, and then just got reached out to by a casting agent, actually, and was asked to submit an application, and somehow got selected, made it to the top 20, went to the selection camp in New York, where you go for a few days to, prove your skills in front of basically a panel of experts, and then they eliminate 10 and keep 10. And I made it, I guess. So next thing I knew, I was on a plane to the Northwest Territories.
How much time did you have between like you made the 10 and you're going to the Arctic?
It's a pretty drug out process, really. I think the entire loan casting process is probably close to a year between just, submitting footage, submitting an application, and then you wait, and then you submit footage, and then you wait, and then you go to selection camp and you wait some more, and there's interviews in between, and it's a pretty lengthy process. So I would say from the time I first spoke to someone from casting to the time we headed up on planes was, 9-10 months, maybe a little longer.
Did you ever get there and you were like, saw some of like the legends, especially I'm thinking like season 7, it's just like packed with like legends of survival. I know, like, if I got in that room, I'd be like, dang, these people are legit. Like, these are some legit folks. Like, I don't know if I can take it, you know?
You mean when we were all together, all in one place?
Yeah, it's like an NBA All-Star lineup of survivalists. Like, you're all in like a room,
Yeah.
and you're like, dang, like that's the LeBron of like bushcraft. Like,
I mean, yeah, we definitely looked up to each other, and everybody had strong points and areas where they needed improvement, and you know, we all sort of just became friends very quickly, and the vibe of the whole group was good, and yeah, we just formed bonds and helped each other out, and it was a great experience. So I don't think any of us were like starstruck by each other by any means, but yeah, it was just a strong team, man. We were peers out there, and we respected each other and understood that anyone in that group could win, and that everyone in the group was worthy of it, and that's just what it was. It wasn't really, yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's I feel like it would be hard if you were in that room to pick like a favorite or a front runner. Like when I look at that lineup, I'm like, if you did it over again, I'd have no idea how the dice would roll another time, you know, different circumstances.
Yeah.
You guys, you know, just with different circumstances could make it 100 days.
For sure. Yeah, I was worried about some of the people that came from warmer climates, you know, who hadn't been exposed to extreme temperatures, and then they end up being the ones that lasted a really long time. So it's anybody's game. It's anybody's game out there. There are a lot of factors that come into play. So it's kind of silly to look at the group and try to make your predictions.
Right. Yeah. I remember Callie last week saying that that was the coldest weather she'd ever been in. And so, you know, look at her, she kicked ass. It was like, she had lived there her whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. Callie's something else, man. She's a badass.
Yeah. She's a
tough chick. Kylan too, man. They represented.
Yeah, they did for sure. Yeah. I thought, like just watching as a viewer, I was like, dang, they're going to do it. One of them's going to do it. It was cool this year because you guys weren't competing, or I don't know, this season, because it wasn't 1v1, right? It was 100 days. So if you had made it 100 days as well, would you enroll in both Win a Million, or do you split $1 million?
You split it however many ways. So if three people make it, you know, it's 333 a piece. Two make it 500 a piece. Yeah, it was $1 million total pot. I don't know how many people know that, but now you do.
Yeah,
it would have been split.
It makes sense though, right? It's like, because what if you have 10 people? What if you have 10 people make it? They're kind of probably no more alone show.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what would happen. I think they'd start like putting booby traps out there or something to try to get us all to fall out.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of booby traps, let's talk about that. What happened with the knee, man? It was like everything was going great, and then all of a sudden you just have like a softball on the back of your leg.
Yeah, it was kind of. They kind of made it look fast and furious in the footage, which I understand that there's limitations to the editing of a show. You know, you're filming a minimum of 80 hours of footage per week while you're out there. Or no, I mean, sorry, 40 hours of footage per week. So in 2 weeks, I had somewhere between, you know, 80 to 100 hours of footage, and they've got to condense that down into basically a single episode for me, just a few short clips. So it looked a little bit more fast and furious than it was. I injured my knee in the first couple of days while I was building my shelter. I had very few large diameter trees in my area. Most of them were about the size of like my wrist or forearm. And then every other tree, you know, every once in a while you'd stumble across a tree that was maybe 8 inches in diameter. So I was walking far and wide to find these larger diameter trees to make my bed frame so that it'd be elevated up off the cold ground. So it'd be nice and thick and sturdy, kind of like the base of my whole shelter where the floor was and where the bed frame was. And I was a ways away from my shelter, cutting down these bigger trees and just kind of like humping them back to the shelter, you know, and had one on my shoulder, and the terrain out there is just rife with invisible holes and like sinkholes into the swamp or sinkholes into rocky crevices. So they just come out of nowhere, and the moss covers them so you can't see them. And I just fell wrong. I just stepped into a hole wrong with a lot of weight on my shoulders and felt a pop in my knee. Really didn't think anything of it. I mean, I felt the snap and I thought, okay, that's probably not good, but it really didn't hurt that bad. So I just walked it off, kind of carried on for a few more days with a light heart. And then probably 2 to 3 days after the slip is when the pressure really started to build up and the back of the knee started to fill with fluid. And it started to deteriorate pretty rapidly after that. I stretched it out for another, 9 days or so after the fall, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I was getting fevers in my sleep, and I just had this hot throbbing feeling in my leg. It was to the point where it was so swollen that if I bumped it with the other knee while I was asleep, it'd wake me right up out of a dead sleep. And I was sleeping on top of my sleeping bag because it was making me sweat through the night. So I'm like, I got to pull the plug. I can't risk getting, septic shock or septicemia rather. Septic arthritis is what happens when you have a bursa sac that bursts, So
yeah, that gets really dangerous in that environment too.
For sure, really dangerous very quickly. It'll poison your blood pretty quickly, and help is quite a ways away. The medical team's 45 minutes away, even in the emergency. So it just isn't worth it. I've got
especially in that cold too, where your body's constantly in fight or flight mode. It's like everything is harder.
Definitely. Yeah, I've got a very active lifestyle back home too. I love to hike and lift weights and run and stuff like that. And the idea of maybe permanently damaging my leg for the rest of forever for $1 million just didn't add up. Not for a TV show. It was a great experience. Very disappointed that it had to go down the way it did, but you got to do what you got to do.
Do you still like wake up or like have dreams of like being out there, or like think about it on a regular basis? Like, fuck that knee. Like I should have something, like just wish it would have gone different in some kind of way.
I mean, it's been a while. We've been done and been back, and I think the show's even the last episode of the show aired almost a year ago now. So it's it comes up every once in a while where I just think like, fuck, I messed up that opportunity, but it is what it is. It's something that's out of my control, and I've had a lot of time to make mental peace with it, and it doesn't really bother me that much anymore. On to the next opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's the right way to handle it. It's like, that sucks. Like, it's a unfortunate circumstance, but like at the end of the day, step in a hole. Like that's the thing about alone is it can be over so quick, right? It can be over, you see the other people like chopping wood a little bit irresponsible with their sharps, and they, catch a tendon on their thumb, and it's like, everything was going great, but it's over. There is no coming back from that, especially in a harsh environment where, bacteria is going to get in there. It's going to be a life-threatening injury really quickly.
Yeah, it's unpredictable up there, man. You got to roll with the punches. You got to improvise. And if you get taken out, you get taken out. It just is what it is. I do believe that there's a chosen one in that show, and anybody else that isn't the chosen one to win is going to get exactly the lessons that they need. Nature's going to take you up there and beat you up a little bit and humble you, and then it's going to send you home. And that's
a good way to look at it.
That's just how it is.
That's a good way to look at it. I like that. It's like one person is meant to win, and then the rest of it, like, you'll get something else out of it. And I think that's true. I think like everyone else that I've talked to from various seasons has gotten something extremely important out of it.
I think it's like any other sort of deep, intentional journey. You get the exact lessons that you were supposed to learn, and everybody gets lessons that are tailored to them. And for me, I've had kind of a crazy life of doing crazy stuff, and I've never been hurt badly, and kind of had this 10-foot tall and bulletproof mentality. And it was nice to be humbled and to realize that I'm just made up of soft tissue like everybody else, and shit happens. You know what I mean? So I got the lesson that I was supposed to.
You don't look like you're made out of that soft of tissue. When I see your picture, I'm like, that guy doesn't look that soft.
Appreciate it, man. I needed to be humbled up there, and that's exactly what happened. So
there you go, man. No, I was watching your YouTube thing, and they got you like doing dips on logs and like flipping tires. I was like, dang, you got like the most badass intro of like all the dudes on the show. Everyone else is like spending time with their dog and their sisters, and you're like, I don't, have a wife, I don't have kids. I just like do push-ups and like look the whole time.
Yeah, that was at that time my life. So it is, that's what they captured. It just.
So what, they just roll in your house like with some cameras and they're like, hey, like do what you do. And you just go outside and show them what it is. Yeah,
pretty much. I actually don't remember everything that was on my casting footage. I can't remember if we, built bows or whatever, but they saw the bow shop, and then we shot bows, obviously. They get some footage of you packing up the gear. And I was, there was a lot of talk about how I was big into the fitness and how I wanted to, come into the competition strong. So they wanted to film, I got a backyard gym that has like pull-up bars and stuff like that. And I got some logs back there and some tires back there. So of course they wanted to film the logs and the tires, and that ends up being what goes on the footage.
No, dude, that's like my favorite way too. Just getting outside and like picking up heavy shit and putting it down is no better feeling. Like working out at gyms, all right, but like for me, if I can be outside, just like throw some rocks around and some logs, like that's the way to go.
Same. Yeah, builds a real world fitness, functional fitness. But I enjoy the gym in the wintertime because we have pretty brutal winters here in southeast Nebraska. I mean, oftentimes negative temperatures, especially through January and February, and deep snow. So kind of hard to flip a tire in, 12, 13 inches of snow. So I'll do the gym thing throughout the winter. And then as soon as it's warm enough to be outside without snow on the ground, I'm right back into the outdoor gym.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of my mentality. It's like, for as long as you can bear it, but once it gets to be like miserable, you gotta switch to indoors because you don't want to start hating it, right? It's like you get to the point where you're hating it, and then you're just like, what's the point?
And you get to the point where your hands are freezing to the metal pull-up and dip bars, and it's too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Your hands are all cracked from like the dry cold, and it's nasty.
Yeah.
So alone kind of thing, you get a dealt hand bad luck, you get back, and then it seems to me, I mean, obviously the timing's a little bit different, but like following your story, it seems like you went right back and just went back to the shop and started kicking ass on bows.
Yeah, the recovery period was pretty brutal. It took a solid 9-10 months, maybe a little longer, to get my knee back to where I felt like it was close to 100%. So recovery was kind of long, but I was definitely spending a lot of time in the bow shop. There's a bit of a social media blackout period once you get back from the show. Obviously, they have to protect, the cast information from getting out, and they have to protect the results from getting out. So there's a social media blackout period where I just focused on building bows and recovering my knee for probably 4 or 5 months.
Did you have like one of them little scooter things where like you're like scooting around the shop and like pulling on the tillering tree and like scraping bows, like I don't know. That's what comes to my head is like you and a little leg scooter.
Nah, man. No, I just walked it off.
You just walked around?
Yeah, I just walked around. I mean, certain days were worse than others, but I believe in exercise therapy, and I try not to, I was trying to avoid surgery, so I don't really believe in laying around and letting it heal. I'd rather get the blood moving, and it just makes it feel better for me. So, I was right back to work.
Good question from Ben right here. He's asking, and this is a question I have too, just to hear everyone's answers. Is your approach to the cold just, suck it up? Or do you have specific techniques that you rely on for being in the cold? I
mean, I don't really go for the suck it up mentality. kind of over the last 2 or 3 years really gotten big into this whole Wim Hof breathing stuff. I discovered Wim Hof a few years ago, and his research about cold exposure and cold training and the different health benefits that can come from extreme cold exposure and cold showers and laying in the snow and things like that. So it really changed my relationship with the cold. And I still try to expose myself to extreme temperatures with minimal clothing on a regular basis. And I like to go outside when there's snow on the ground and meditate or lay in the snow in my underwear and just try to form, a respect for the cold, but also an understanding that as long as I can control my breathing, the body can do some pretty amazing things as far as keeping myself warm and keeping myself centered in extreme temperatures.
Yeah, and I know we've, kind of connected on the Wim Hof stuff before, and I've been doing it since 2018, I think. And it is interesting, like, your body's knack for homeostasis, as long as all of your other things are taken care of, all of, like, the basic things like nutrients and certain other things are taken care of, then your body will really go towards homeostasis almost at any point, given that you remain calm and work on that breath. Yeah,
it's people look at you like you're crazy when it's going down, but if you can keep that breath under control, it's pretty mind-blowing. I mean, you can lay completely covered in snow or in, freezing cold water, and you just get like this warm, numb feeling all throughout your body. And as long as you can get that breathing under control, stop yourself from hyperventilating, it's like you said, you just sort of reach this homeostasis, this hypercharged, like hyper-oxygenated state where you could sort of get high on oxygen, and it kind of just amps your body up full of energy, and it keeps you warm. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah, it is really bizarre. And I feel like I've also kind of touched the limits. Like, so definitely anybody can take advantage, and that's Wim Hof's genius, is that he's not a superhero. Everyone can do what he's doing. But I think there are limits to it, especially when malnourished, right? So, or certain points of what they say exposure. So I know for me, like this year I've been doing snow running and walking barefoot, and I started to get a little bit of frost nip, I believe. It's just, I started getting tingly in my feet, when I was laying in bed warm, and like I had to listen to those signs because I was pushing myself more than I had. So that there's definitely limits. It's not like a fix all for everything. And I know like Callie being malnourished when she had the toe with frostbite, like full blown, there are certain times where it gets kind of dangerous. For sure.
Yeah, you need calories for your body to heal. Yeah. And you just, like you said, you just got to listen to your body. If you're out there and your feet have gone completely numb and you're having pains and things like that, you just got to be smart about it. There's things like cold water blackout. I mean, our tap water in Nebraska in the wintertime gets cold enough straight out of the shower head to cause cold water blackout. So I try to only have my head under the water, until, you can have your head under this tap water that's coming out this time of year and just get a searing headache in a matter of seconds. So you just got to listen to your body.
Yeah, for sure. But all in all, man, the Wim Hof stuff did it for me. It did a lot of crazy things for me. I know like meditating in the shower and anything really that's like connected to water has been a big thing with me. So like being in streams, lakes, all of that mixed with like the breathing techniques, I feel like it lets you tap into somewhere that you really haven't been before, like you're trying to, it's not like a weightlifting push or like a running push. It's like a different kind of pushing your body. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Yeah. Mental toughness and resilience.
Yeah. Mental toughness, I guess would be the best word for it. But it's like a matter of staying super calm, and it has nothing to do with like exerting yourself. Yeah, definitely. That guy's awesome. I think he's a super funny like personality too. I've put like tags of him like in the Who the Wild Things Are, because I was like, we need to get Wim on the show. Like, get this guy on here. Let's see what he has to say, and just let it roll. So post alone, you get the knee recovery, and now you're building bows. What's going on now? You're doing the bow building classes. What else is up with you? Obviously, you're going to this brolic competition where you shoot bows and stuff. But back at Organic Archery, what's the status?
I'm really focused on classes this year. That's a big change to the structure of Organic Archery, as people have been asking me for years to do classes, and just with custom orders and everything, which is what I was focused on for the first 2 years of the business. It just drained me. It drained me out. I mean, with custom orders coming in all the time, it's very difficult to keep up with seasoned wood. You're constantly cutting trees to try to keep a revolving door of fresh wood coming in as staves are getting seasoned and you're using them up. And you're always having to use staves that you really don't want to work with, that are, extra challenging because you've just got to work with what you have seasoned and on hand. So for sure, yeah, lots of character and lots of challenges that could have otherwise been avoided if you were just, selecting the staves that you wanted to work. So just to the only way that it would even be possible for me to free up time to do the bow building classes was to just stop doing custom orders completely. So I'm doing one class a month for the first 5 months of the year just to see how it goes. So I've got the class schedule posted up until June, I think. I'll have to look at my website. I'm not even sure, but I think I've got class schedules posted up until June. We'll see how it goes. We'll see where I can improve. We'll see if it's something I want to keep doing. And in the meantime, I'll still be building bows, arrows, and quivers as often as I'm able, and just selling them as kind of one-off pieces, on a first come, first served basis. I'm trying to focus on bows that are accessible to everybody. They'll all be within, like 45 to 65 pounds draw. All of them will be able to accommodate at least a 28-inch draw. And then every once in a while, I'll throw in maybe a heavyweight bow, or maybe I'll throw in a bow that can accommodate, a 30 or 31-inch draw. And just try to make them accessible to a wider audience. And just sell them as I make them. That way I'm allowed to work staves that I want to work. And I just really think I'll be able to take more time too. I won't be pressed by long order lists and pressing deadlines. I'll be able to really push the performance of these bows, really push the attention to detail to the maximum. So that's the goal anyway.
So now that you're making less, are they going to be kind of more refined art pieces with a slightly higher price point because of the added attention to detail?
I don't think they're going to be. I mean, I still, even when I was doing large production, I gave every bow that came out of the shop my all, which was kind of why I was burning myself out, because I sort of have this tendency to be a little bit of a perfectionist, and when you're doing that with dozens and dozens of bows, it can really wear you down. So, I mean, I really don't feel like I have the ability to refine them anymore. Than they already were, but I'm definitely going to start pushing the performance a little bit, kind of trying some modified designs, and I'll also be able to take more time to work like maybe some really unique looking staves with some crazy looking character, and I'll base the prices kind of off what each unique piece looks like. It'll be based partly off of tree species and availability, like obviously Osage orange is the king of bow woods or whatever, so. And it's more difficult to come by, so Osage orange bows will always be more expensive than whitewood bows, but maybe I'll be putting out a whitewood bow every once in a while that has branches on it or crazy character, and I'll be able to kind of price those as unique pieces. Yeah. I'm still trying to keep them affordable for everybody, but there'll definitely be a little bit of a more varying price structure, whereas before it was all a flat rate based on tree species.
Right, yeah. It was like Osage is this base price, and then whatever you want in terms of modifications are more or less. So for the pieces you're going to do now, are you going to mess with you at all? I feel like, I know it's probably a question you get all the time is, when are you going to start working you? But yeah, I feel like if I'm only going to do a couple bows, maybe a month or every 3 months, like maybe doing a couple U bows would be sick. Just because obviously it's not as available.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems with yew is obviously it doesn't grow in my region, and they're also
Dude, let's go up to Washington. We'll get some.
I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know where to find it. We just have to go hike up into the mountains and look.
That's right. But, that's where it starts.
I'm down, but usually the bowyers that take the time to go out into the remote environments to get the yew, they're kind of prized pieces. And if you buy the staves, especially if you buy a clean piece of yew, it could run you a couple $100 just for the stave alone. And the bowyers that have access to really clean wood, it's kind of coveted, and that's their money making wood. So I don't know. I'm torn, man. Like, I really kind of have this, I guess maybe it's just a inner desire to use locally harvested and sustainably harvested woods. So there's always people who are giving me flack for cutting down trees and stuff, but what they don't realize is that I'm working deals with local farmers who are about to like bulldoze large sections of land, or there are also deforestation projects locally where these companies are going in and clearing out, they're going into the park services and clearing out massive swaths of invasive species, or non-native species rather, to try to preserve the oak and walnut forests that are native to our area. So they'll go in with, a team of loggers and just take out all of the hackberries and locusts and all that stuff. So
those
if I can get
great whitewood bows, like hackberry and locust right there, you can make that stuff for days.
And hedge too. I mean, Osage orange. It just so happens that the trees that the farmers are pushing them with bulldozers, or the loggers are going into, the deforestation projects are going in to clear out already, that are already going to be killed, are the best bow woods. So why it just doesn't make sense for me not to go in there and try to clear out some ahead of the teams or ahead of the bulldozers to, give these trees at least a dignified second chance instead of just being pushed into a burn pile and burned in a few years.
Hell yeah. I feel like that's a great mission. I had no idea it works that way. I just kind of figured that it was referral sources and people called you up like, hey, do you want this tree kind of thing. I didn't realize it was large scale operations, but I feel like, so in that instance, they call you up and you get a tip, right? And say, we're about to go clear out this hackberry and there's 10 or 15 trees. You go and just like chop them down and then haul them back.
Yeah. It's it's all based on tips. Like someone will reach out to me and be like, hey, there's this farmer locally who's about to push in this entire forest for monocropping operations. So if you reach out to them, maybe there's a chance you could run in there and get some trees. So I'll figure out the farmer's contact information, hit them up. And then I say like, hey, this is what I do for a living. I've heard that you guys are about to push in this section of forest, and I'm willing to pay you for your trees if you let me come in there ahead of the dozers and cut some of this stuff out. Or if like there's a deforestation project for the city or for a local park and I catch wind of it in the newspaper or something, I'll call somebody up and be like, hey, I'll throw you guys a little side cash if you let me come in there ahead of you and cut these trees out. So it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, they're going to cut them anyway. I'm giving them some beer money for the weekend to go in there and cut a few trees. And I really don't have the equipment to process like more than about 2 trees a day. So this is my cutting season right now in the winter when the sap content's really low. So I'm trying to get out, once a week, once every 2 weeks for a good cutting day. And if I do that throughout the winter, I'm stocked up for 1 to 2 years.
So you're chainsawing them down, putting them on a trailer, and then you split them by hand into staves?
I split them and process them right out there in the forest. It just makes them easier to transport. Yep. I bring all my equipment with me, hammer and wedges and chainsaws, and I just...
So you're wedging everything by hand?
For sure, yep.
Yeah, that's down and dirty. That's probably where you're getting your workout from, the grip stick. They're just knocking a wedge for 8 hours.
Yeah, man. Cutting days they're brutal. They're pretty hard on you.
That's a lot of work, man. That's a lot of work. Especially on a hard bow wood, right? It's not just like falling apart for you. You got to work that thing out.
The trees will make you earn it, but that's part of the fun.
Absolutely. You take what are you doing for the bow class? Are you doing whitewood?
Yes. And the
Okay.
reason I've chosen to do whitewoods for the classes is because that way people can sort of explore a bow design that's going to be applicable to them in their local regions. Like basically nobody has access to yew or osage unless they buy it. And if they buy it, it's expensive. And if they cut it themselves, they're going to have to cut several trees to find, osage or yew that's even a fraction of as clean as your average everyday whitewood tree. So I really want to try to introduce people to the bowwoods that grow right in their backyard. And so that's why I've chosen to do whitewoods. We do a design that sort of, it basically applies to most whitewood tree species, with the exception that, if it's a really soft wood, maybe you make it just a little bit wider and a little bit longer. And maybe if it's a little bit denser wood, you could shrink it up just a touch. But the general dimensions we use in the class are kind of for like just a smooth shooting, low string angle, reliable, low stress design that still performs well enough to be more than efficient enough to kill any large game in North America. So I'm just trying to open up the craft to as many people as possible and allow them to use woods that they have ready access to.
And I'm guessing that near the handle, that's going to be a little bit wider than an osage stave. You're going to cut that a little bit wider near the handle.
Yeah, they call it the fade outs or whatever, the widest portion of the limb. Yeah, as a general rule of thumb, the less dense the wood becomes, the wider you have to make it. So
exactly.
Osage can be a solid, 50% narrower than other bowwoods.
Right. Yeah. So for everybody watching, I actually got a stave from Correy. Correy goes through a bunch of Osage, and the way I understand it, and the way when I started with whitewood when I was building my first one, because I heard not to buy Osage online because the nature of Osage, any of you guys who have those green monkey balls in your yard, that's Osage. And that the trees they look like this, they're kind of funky. And so online, you don't really know what you're getting. So that's why I bought mine from Correy. Correy's got kind of a selection of pieces that he ends up not working, and then he sold off at a discounted price for poor people like me. And I shape it into my makeshift bow. Definitely not the same level of craftsmanship, but a good college try.
Did you end up tillering that bow blank out? You got it set aside at a certain stage right now, or?
No, it was just sitting down there. We've been busy, so I started floor tillering yesterday. Just kind of mass removal right now. So I live kind of on the road. I just got a scrap piece of 2x4. I'm gonna cut out a tillering tree, if you will. I'm gonna cut out a makeshift tillering tree, and I'll tiller it soon. But yeah, I started doing some mass removal, just checking it out, carving in some rough knock points just to get it strung up and give it a look. Yeah, it's a cool piece. It's got this huge knot at the top. It's kind of like I think that's gonna be my top limb. It looks like it's like eye level. It's weird. So like when you're pulling, you'll be like looking kind of at the eye. I don't know.
Cool. That'll have some cool character when you get it done.
Yeah, it'll have a lot of character to it for sure. It's a cool piece. So, did you end up selling all those ones that you were kind of selling secondhand?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me about bow blanks or bow staves, and it's so hard for me to keep myself stocked with bow wood that I very rarely have anything available. And sometimes I'll get bow blanks roughed out throughout the year, and maybe just at that time, I'm too pressed for time to deal with something with a little extra character, or maybe it just has some feature that I just don't feel like navigating at that time, or that's not a good application for whatever bow I've selected it for. Like maybe the bow that I'm working at that time is just too heavy of a weight for me to trust the stave that I've chosen, or vice versa. Maybe it's too light of a weight and I'd rather have a cleaner stave than one with character so that it has less mass to propel forward. So it just sort of over the years, I just started to accumulate these blanks that I kind of put off. And people were asking me over and over if I ever sold blanks or staves. And finally I'm like, you know what, I'm going to take my whole blank pile that I've been sort of just looking at for the last year and sell them off at a discounted price. And they went within the first 24 hours. People just bought them up. And there's actually been people sending me pictures of their finished bows, and it's really awesome. There's been, I think, 3 or 4 people already that have sent me photos of the bows that they made out of those blanks, and they turned out great. So super pumped about
I'm behind
that.
the curve then. I need to get my ass in motion. So Ed Bushcraft just had a great question. He said, do you still have the first bow you made?
No, because the first bow that I ever made broke. It was a hickory board bow, and it broke at the handle. So my younger brother has the second bow that I ever made. It's a hickory board bow that pulls 60 pounds at 28 inches.
Nice.
And he's been beating the daylights out of that thing for the last 7 years, and it's still going strong.
Hell yeah.
It's just,
you said it was a board bow?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's terribly ugly. I didn't know anything about design or performance. It's got these huge square, like way overbuilt limb tips on it, but it still shoots just fine. It kicks like a mule, but my brother loves it. So
whatever, man. If it works,
yeah.
It works.
He's gotten a more upgraded version since then, but he still takes that first hickory bow that second hickory bow that I ever made. He still takes it out on a regular basis and slings some arrows with it.
That's what it's all about, man. It's just getting out there with the old school stuff and seeing what you can do with it. I think the hickory bow thing I love that idea because it's so accessible. It's like anybody can get out there, go to Home Depot or whatever lumber yard around them, get a plank of hickory and draw out a design and make it how you want it. You know, it's a very accessible thing. You don't have to have a bunch of fancy equipment.
No, that's one of the benefits about starting with a board bow is there's multiple benefits. You get dimensional lumber that you can start from. So there's no chasing a ring. Right. I mean, you need to do a little bit of background research to learn what kind of like grain orientation a board should have so that it makes a sturdy bow. But once you've got a board with good grain, you've got a nice flat back there that you can draw a profile onto. Yep. Just glue a quick handle riser onto it. It's going to give you a nice flat subject to work your early tillering skills on, because it takes some practice and some skill and some broken bows to learn how to tiller a stave, one with branches and knots and wiggles. So if you can start with a board bow or a board that only costs you, $5 to $8 at the hardware store and get a shooting bow out of it and really kind of cut your teeth on the tillering process with board bows, I mean, it's a win-win. And there's no doubt that a board bow will make a very high performance bow, one that is equal to any other self bow. I believe in the traditional Bowyers Bible book series, I want to say maybe it's in volume 4, they talk about design and performance. And I think the highest performing bow that any of those Bowyers from the traditional Bowyers Bible series ever made was a hickory board bow. Yeah. So
I've got volume 1, and I hug that thing at night. And I swear to God, I've read the Osage part. Like even before I built Osage, I just dreamt about Osage. I don't know why. It was just like the wood I wanted to learn on. And I think I read that chapter like 14 times. It's only like 10 pages, but I think I read it 14 times.
Yeah, for anybody that's looking to get started, pick up a couple of the books that are out there. It's just, they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
Just the resources are out there. You know what I mean? You can watch there's tons of videos, there's tons of books. And then if you want to take a few years off the learning curve, because it doesn't matter how many books you read or how many videos you watch, when you actually get tools on wood with a real stave, I mean, it's going to seem like rocket science. So it takes just practice. It takes broken bows. It takes, experience. So if you want to take a few more years off the learning curve, you can always, I truly believe that classes with professionals shave so much time off the learning curve. And that applies to anything,
Yeah, I think you're being modest. I think if you want to be good, you got to learn from somebody like you. That's really what it comes down to. Is if this is something you're passionate about, it's like, I think the opportunity that you're giving people, I saw the post you gave to those people, or with the other folks in your bow building class. It's like they built kick-ass bows in 3 days. And like those guys are going to be like legends now. They're going to be addicted and just build bows forever. You know,
Hopefully.
This isn't a one-off thing. They just learn from the master, and they're about to be legit bowyers.
I hope that's what happens. I'd like people to leave with, you know, at least a base level of knowledge, just so that they can craft bows for the rest of their lives. That's the goal, anyway. It's gonna, once you get home, you know, you're gonna, what taking a class would do with a bowyer is just give you a higher rate of early success. Like you have someone who's maybe built several hundred bows who's watching over your shoulder, and they can guide you through and be like, okay, you know, here's where you're making a mistake. This is why we do this. This is why we do that. And you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. So you just get a little bit higher of an early success rate, and you leave, you know, your first experience with a high performance bow versus maybe you get some surviving bows. But I know definitely, like, my first 10 or 20 bows were definitely nothing to write home about. They were, you know, shocky and heavy and overbuilt, and I was nervous. I didn't really understand, you know, how far I could push it, or where mass needed to be removed to, like, make them perform the best, or really how the process worked. Even though I had spent years reading every book and watching every video, it just didn't make any sense to me when I actually put tools on wood. So you can get there in a bunch of different ways, but taking a class with a professional can definitely shave off a bunch of time.
Yeah, and I think it's something that everyone would enjoy. Actually, it's a funny story. I was out on a run today, met another lady who had a dog. We got to talking. She said that she just started shooting traditional. She doesn't hunt, not interested in killing animals. Her husband does hunting and kills animals, but she loves shooting the bow. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter if you never plan on shooting an animal in your life. Shooting a traditional bow is just a great time. It's just, the whole experience is just sick. It's like, you can't not have fun doing it.
Exactly. It's like meditation in motion. It's a very Zen experience. You kind of get this this thing where, like, this weapon becomes an extension of your body, and you're connected to it, and it's made of natural materials, and it's just it's very Zen. It's just kind of like a spiritual practice almost. And a lot of cultures did use archery as a spiritual practice, or as a disciplinary practice, or a meditation practice. So it definitely has applications. I mean, you can have just as much fun shooting stumps and dirt clods and leaves and targets for the rest of your life and never killing an animal. So,
right. Yeah, no, I think, and also the process of seeing it as a stave, which for folks not as familiar is just one section of the tree that's cut out and planned to turn into a bow. So it looks just like a small tree. And then through the process, it becomes this intricate and very specific weapon that, you know, involves time and technique. And you kind of form this bond with your bow. A lot of people name their bows, and it becomes kind of this relationship where there's a give and take. You have to be careful with how far you push it. And there's a lot of, you know, feedback from the bow back to you, right? And you'll feel it in your hands. It's a very, I don't know, it's a very interesting process getting to know a traditional bow, especially versus like shooting a recurve where you're just ripping it back and there's a wheel and it just sends a dart. It's a very different, more holistic experience, in my opinion, at least.
I believe in, like, the spiritual connection to the trees and the earth and the sort of oneness of all things. And when you take this living tree, you know, that's part of our ecosystem and part of us and part of everything else, and you cut it down and it's sacrificed its life to become, you know, this weapon that's going to become an extension of you. It's really kind of, it's kind of like a spiritual connection to that weapon. It becomes your companion. It becomes something that you rely on and trust, and it feeds you, and it gives you feedback. It tells you, you know, what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and it makes you, it's like the ultimate teacher. You know, it's a spiritual teacher, because when the archer makes a mistake, the only place that he can look is inside of himself. So,
right.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It's a little bit woo-woo, but I'm big into the spiritual connection to the bow made of the living tree, and that's why I'm so passionate about it.
I think it sounds woo woo until you do it. You know, like when you see someone like you with all this experience of transforming wood into usable weapons that bring people food and sustenance and animals and happiness and joy, it's a lot less woo woo than right. It's pretty much just what it is. It's you're taking a piece of wood and crafting it into something really special.
Yeah, that first time people fire an arrow out of a bow that they made with their own two hands and it launches that thing out of there like a laser beam, they're hooked, man. That's the ultimate connection. They build that bond right then.
I remember seeing Adam Kavanaugh had been shooting a recurve in his videos, and then I remember him doing like a unboxing of your bow, and he pulls it out. He's like in the Australian outback, and he like rips a couple darts, and he's like, "This thing is sick!" Like, let's go. He's just so hyped. It was awesome.
Adam's bow was really cool, man. That was a really clean piece of Osage, and it had some of the craziest red color. I've never seen anything like it. It looked metallic in the sunlight. It was just glistening and moving, and it had this crazy looking grain structure to it. So I was really pumped that he enjoyed it.
That's one of the coolest things about Osage is that color, man. It's just like naturally just eye-popping. You see the wood and you're like, is that treated wood? No, that is what this wood looks like.
And the tannins in the wood darken as it's exposed to UV light. So, you get this bow right out of the tree that's just like laser yellow. And then within the first year, it's got a nice tan. And then within the next year, it just keeps it darker and darker. And within 2 or 3 years, it's got this deep brown patina that's just like, it's like looking into the ocean. It's really cool. It just goes way down into the wood. And it just gets dark. It just gets darker and darker with age. I mean, a 6, 7, 8-year-old Osage bow is a deep, dark chocolate brown. Really cool looking. Right.
Yeah, it's such an interesting process. It's almost like oxidation of bronze or how red rocks get their color. It's like nature has its way of changing and morphing the color of something. You think you know it well, and then you come back and you've set it in your closet for 6 months, and you pull it back out, and it's a completely different looking bow. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah, for sure.
It's an interesting thing, man. Well, Correy, I've appreciated talking with you, man, as always. Hopefully we get a chance to do a couple more trips this year, and definitely welcome to come out to the Rockies. We'll get some hunting in, but I want to say thank you so much for coming and speaking with me. It's been a great time. I know I've enjoyed it. Everyone else has as well. And you, my friend, you're definitely wild.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I come out of the Rockies all the time, so I'll hit up you and Donnie next time I'm out there. And thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to it. We'll get out there and we'll do some hunting, and maybe by that time I'll be able to show you my bow.
Sweet.
All
Great
right,
talk,
man.
Brother. I'm gonna hit the road.
Yeah.
I got about 2 more hours to get to my hotel.
All right, man. Be safe on the road. See you later.
See you, Ryan. Peace.
Later.